Pack your things, Mrs. Sullivan. You have 3 days.
Just like that, no explanations, no hesitation. My daughter-in-law, Christine, stood in the doorway of the house my husband and I had built 30 years ago and told me to move out. Only a week after my son's funeral. But before I continue, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. It's important for us to know how far our stories reach. There are moments in life when you think you've seen it all. I survived the 90s, the collapse of the country, the loss of my husband, and endless financial crises. But when your own daughter-in-law, the mother of your granddaughter, looks at you like garbage and tells you to get out of the house, you realize there's no limit to human cruelty. Christine, I tried to stay calm, though my hands were shaking. It hasn't even been a week since David passed. We haven't even. That's exactly why, she interrupted, adjusting her flawless manicure. This house is mine now. The apartment was in David's name, and I'm his wife. So pack your bags and free up the room. I need space. Space. She needed space in a 3-bedroom apartment in downtown Seattle where I had lived for 40 years. Paula, my 16-year-old granddaughter, stood behind her mother, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to say something, but Christine turned sharply. What are you standing here for? Go to your room. You have nothing to do here. Mom, this isn't right, Paula whispered. Grandma. I said go. The girl ran to her room, and I stayed standing in the hallway where, only a week ago, a family photo had hung. David's smile. His eyes. God, how I missed my son. I have a condition, Christine said, pulling cigarettes from her purse, knowing perfectly well I couldn't stand the smell of tobacco. You can take only personal items. The furniture, dishes, and appliances stay here. They belong to the family. Family. What irony. Christine, I understand you're under stress. I tried to reach whatever humanity was left in her. We're all grieving. Let's not make rash decisions. David is dead. Her voice was cold as ice. And now I'm the mistress of this house. You want to sue? Go ahead, but we both know I'd win in court. She was right. Technically, she was right. The apartment was in David's name. After my husband's death, I transferred everything to my son because I thought, why would I need it at 67? Better he have it. I trusted him. I believed family was sacred. What a naive fool I was. 3 days, Mrs. Sullivan, Christine said, turning away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor my husband and I had laid ourselves. And leave all the keys on the table, every one of them. The door slammed shut. I was alone in the hallway, where David's cologne still lingered and his jacket still hung on the rack. I brushed my hand against the sleeve and closed my eyes, feeling nausea rise in my throat. My boy. My only son, who had built a career as an architect, just like I once had. Who called every day, came by on weekends with Paula, helped with repairs. Who died of a heart attack at 42, leaving me completely alone in this world. And now his widow was throwing me out. My phone vibrated. A message from Mr. Stephen Warner, the notary. Mrs. Sullivan, please come to my office tomorrow at 10 o'clock. Reading of David Sullivan's will. Attendance required. A will. I didn't even know David had made one. Why would he? He was only 42. His whole life ahead of him. I dialed Mr. Warner's number, my hands trembling. Mr. Warner, this is Linda Sullivan. Are you sure? I'm sure, his voice was firm, professional. David Sullivan prepared a will a month and a half ago. Please don't be late. And yes, Christine Sullivan is also invited. A month and a half ago. Just before his death. Something in his tone made me uneasy. Is there something wrong? I asked. A pause. You'll find out everything tomorrow, Mrs. Sullivan. Good day. He hung up, and I stood in the middle of the hallway, clutching my phone, my heart pounding somewhere in my throat. What were you planning, David? What were you trying to tell me? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in my bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the last months of David's life. Something had been off. He'd become quieter, more distant. I'd blamed it on work, on stress, on new projects. But now I knew, there had been something more. A will made just 6 weeks before his death. That wasn't coincidence. At dawn I got up, made myself some coffee, and sat by the window. Seattle was waking up, buses, cars, people rushing to work. Ordinary life went on, indifferent to anyone's grief. Inside me, though, was an emptiness the size of the universe. Around 7:30, Paula slipped into the room, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Grandma," she whispered, sitting beside me. "Please forgive Mom. She's not herself." I hugged my granddaughter's thin shoulders. Such a fragile girl, still just a child, and already she understood more than her mother ever would. "Don't apologize for someone else's actions, sweetheart," I stroked her hair. "Every person is responsible for their own words." "But where will you go? You don't have another place to live," Paula sobbed. "Maybe you can rent an apartment? I can find a part-time job and help with money." 16 years old, and she was already willing to work to help her grandmother, while her mother was throwing a 70-year-old woman out on the street. "I have my pension, don't worry," I smiled, though my heart ached. "And anyway, I'm going to the notary today. The reading of the will." "Dad's will?" Paula looked up. "Does Mom know?" "She knows. She's invited too." Then, the girl hesitated. "Then maybe there's something written in it? About the apartment?" I shrugged. Honestly, I had no idea what to expect. David had never discussed such things with me. We were close, but he was always private when it came to money and documents. At 9 o'clock, Christine came out of her bedroom already dressed to perfection, makeup, dress, high heels. As if she were going to a party, not to her husband's will reading. "Mrs. Sullivan," she didn't even glance at me, "I'm heading to the notary's office." "You're going there too?" "I am." "Then let's drive together." She picked up her car keys. No need to waste money on a cab. That was her, saving pennies but spending thousands on manicures and beauty salons. Priorities, you know. We drove in silence. I stared out the window while Christine kept typing on her phone, smiling, even giggling like a schoolgirl. A week after her husband's death. Everything all right? I couldn't hold back. "What?" She looked up from the screen. "You're smiling. Messaging someone?" "That's my personal business," Christine cut me off. "And let's make this clear right away. After the will is read, you move out. No extensions. So you're that sure the apartment is yours?" She smirked. "Whose else would it be? I'm the wife. The legal heir. If David didn't bother to write a will, everything's mine by law. And if he did, he wouldn't have left the apartment to his mother instead of his wife." Flawless logic. Yet something inside me whispered, it wasn't that simple. The notary's office was located in an old building on Liberty Avenue. High ceilings, parquet floors, the smell of old paper and dust. Mr. Stephen Warner greeted us in his office, a man in his mid-50s, wearing glasses, a folder of documents on the desk. "Please, take a seat," he nodded toward the chairs. "We're waiting for one more person." "For whom?" Christine frowned. "You'll see." The door opened, and in walked a tall man in his early 40s wearing an expensive suit. I didn't know him, but Christine turned pale. "Simon," her voice trembled. "What are you doing here?" "I was invited." He sat in the chair across from us, not even glancing her way. "As the business partner of the late David Sullivan." "Business partner?" I looked at Christine. She was white as a sheet, her hands shaking. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Mr. Warner cleared his throat. "All right, let's begin. The will of David Sullivan, made on August 15, 2025. A month and a half ago. Just weeks before his death. Being of sound mind and clear judgment." I clenched my hands into fists. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst out of my chest. "Please listen carefully." Mr. Warner removed his glasses and looked at us. "Because the content of this may come as a surprise to some of those present." And you know what? He was right. What I heard in the next 2 minutes turned my entire life upside down. The apartment located at 23 Greenwood Avenue, Unit 47, I bequeathed to my wife, Christine Sullivan. Christine exhaled with relief. I saw her shoulders relax, a pleased smile spread across her face. She was already picturing me packing my suitcases. But the notary continued. "On the condition that she does not contest any other parts of the will. In the event of any attempt to challenge the will in court, the apartment will automatically transfer to my daughter, Paula Sullivan." The smile froze on Christine's face. "What?" She leaned forward. "What other parts?" Mr. Warner calmly turned the page. "To my mother, Mrs. Linda Sullivan, I bequeath the family house in the suburb of Bellevue near Seattle, built by my father and myself, as well as the sum of $100,000 from my personal account." My breath caught. The house. Our house, where my husband and I spent weekends, where David learned to hammer nails, where we planted apple trees. David had left me our home. And $100,000. Enough for me to live the rest of my days in peace. Christine flinched but said nothing. Mr. Warner continued. "The architectural firm Sullivan and Associates, including all assets, equipment, intellectual property, and ongoing projects, I bequeath to my daughter, Paula Sullivan." "The firm?" Christine couldn't hold back. "The management of the company and trustee control over its assets until Paula reaches legal age. I assign to my mother, Mrs. Linda Sullivan, as an experienced architect and the founder of the firm." Founder. David remembered. "It was I who had opened that firm 30 years ago. I built it from nothing, then passed it on to my son when I retired. The commercial property located at 51 Pine Street, offices from the first through the third floor, I bequeath to my daughter, Paula Sullivan." Christine jumped up from her chair. "This is impossible. He couldn't have done that. I'm his wife." "Please sit down," the notary said calmly, not even raising an eyebrow. "I'm not finished." "I don't care." Christine's voice rose to a shriek. "This is a fake. It's illegal. I'll contest it." Mr. Warner looked up at her. "I remind you, Mrs. Sullivan, any attempt to contest this will void your inheritance of the apartment. Entirely. You will be left without a place to live." She froze. I could see the battle between greed and fury in her eyes. An apartment in downtown Seattle was worth more than $200,000. Losing that was terrifying. "Go on," she muttered through clenched teeth, collapsing back into her chair. "The company's bank accounts, deposits, and investment portfolio totaling approximately $380,000, I bequeath to my daughter Paula Sullivan. The management of those accounts is to be handled by my mother, Mrs. Linda Sullivan, until my granddaughter reaches legal age. $380,000. My God. I knew the firm was doing well, but not that well. The personal Audi A6 automobile, I bequeathed to my daughter, Paula. The car too?" Christine gasped. "He left the car to a child? Your daughter is 16, she'll be eligible for a driver's license in a year," the notary replied dryly. Until then, the car will remain under her grandmother's supervision. I sat frozen. My head was spinning. David had left Paula a future. He had left me a home and the means to live. He had taken care of us. And Christine, only a roof over her head, and even that with conditions. And the final clause, Mr. Warner said, glancing at the man in the suit. The share in the joint residential development project Beacon Heights on Calvary Street, I bequeath to my business partner Mr. Simon Harris, on the condition that he continue work on the project and pay my daughter, Paula Sullivan, 10% of the net profit after completion. Simon, the man in the suit, nodded. Of course. I'll continue the project. David put his soul into it. I looked at Christine. She sat gripping the armrests, her face twisted with rage. Then I noticed, she was staring at Simon. Not just looking, devouring him with her eyes. With pain. With pleading. And it hit me. That concludes the main text of the will. Mr. Warner turned the last page. However, there is one more document. A personal letter from David Sullivan to his mother. He handed me a sealed envelope. I recognized David's handwriting on the front, to Mom. Read after the will is opened. My hands trembled as I tore it open. Inside was a sheet of paper covered in his familiar handwriting. Mom, I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner. I knew. About Christine and Simon. I've known for the past 2 months. A private investigator, photographs, everything, just like in a cheap detective story. I wanted to protect Paula. And you. I didn't want a scandal, a divorce, a trial. I just wanted to make sure my daughter and my mother would be safe, no matter what happened. Forgive me. I love you. David. Tears streamed down my face. My boy had known. He had known and kept silent. He had written that will to protect us, and then died, carrying that pain with him. Christine, I looked up at my daughter-in-law. He knew. She turned pale. David knew about you and Simon. The silence in the notary's office was deafening. Christine sat as if struck by lightning, her face white, lips trembling, hands clutching her purse so tightly that her knuckles turned white. That's not true, she whispered. Mrs. Sullivan, you don't understand. I understand everything, I said, slipping the letter back into the envelope, feeling cold fury rise inside me. My son died knowing that his wife betrayed him with his own business partner. He died after writing a will to protect his daughter and his mother. You know nothing. Christine sprang up, her voice breaking into a scream. You don't know how it really was. David was cold. He ignored me for years. So you went to his friend? I stood as well, feeling my hands ball into fists. So you betrayed the man who gave you a home, a family, provided for you? I have a right to be happy, she grabbed her bag. I don't have to live with someone who doesn't love me. Doesn't love you? I stepped toward her. David worked 12 hours a day so you could go to salons and buy bags costing $1,000. He bought you a car, jewelry, paid for vacations. That isn't love? It's money. Christine spun toward me, fury burning in her eyes. Money isn't love. Where was he when I was hurting? Where was he when I wanted to talk? At work. Always at the damn job. He was building a future for you. He was building his career, she jabbed a finger at me. And I was a pretty accessory to his success. The architect's wife. Do you think I didn't notice how he looked at me? Like an object. Like a piece of the decor. I fell silent because there was a grain of truth in her words I did not want to admit. David really had worked too much. I'd seen him come home exhausted, fall asleep over his drawings, miss family dinners. But that did not justify betrayal. Christine, I exhaled, if you were unhappy in the marriage you should have talked. Gone to counseling. Divorced, if necessary. But not cheated. Easy for you to say, she sneered, tears catching in her voice. You're saintly, Linda Sullivan. Perfect wife, perfect mother. You never made mistakes, right? That was a blow below the belt. I clenched my jaw. I made mistakes. Many. But I never betrayed my husband. Christine spun toward Simon Harris, who had been sitting silently, staring out the window. Simon, tell them. Tell them it was real between us. That it wasn't just, that it was more than. Simon slowly turned his head and looked at her with a long, heavy gaze. Then he said, flat and cold. Christine, stop. Don't. What do you mean, don't? She approached him, her voice trembling. We talked about this. You promised that when things settled down we'd be together. I never promised, his voice was emotionless. You made it all up in your head. I watched Christine physically recoil as if he had struck her. What did you say? She choked. I have a wife, Christine. Simon stood, straightening his jacket. And 2 children. I never intended to leave my family. You were a diversion. A diversion. He called her a diversion. Christine stood with her mouth open, unable to form words. Her face flushed red, then pale again. Her breathing was ragged. You used me, she whispered, voice like a taut string about to snap. We used each other. Simon put on his coat without looking at her. You wanted attention, I wanted, never mind. David was my friend. A good man. I betrayed him, and I'll live with that. But I am not going to destroy my family. So all this time, Christine backed against the wall. All this time you lied to me? I didn't lie, he buttoned his coat. I simply didn't tell the truth. Those are different things. Unlike you, I'm not playing the victim. Mr. Warner, contact me about the project. Good day. He left, turned and walked out, leaving Christine standing at the wall, her face distorted by pain and rage. The notary cleared his throat awkwardly. Ladies, if there are no further questions. There is, Christine snapped upright. I have a question. Is this will legal? Can it be contested? Christine. I stepped toward her. Did you hear what happens if? I don't care, she spun at me. Do you think I'll let you take everything? David's business, the money, the property? It's mine. I'm his wife. You may attempt to contest it, Mr. Warner removed his glasses. But under the clause of the will, any court challenge will forfeit your claim to the apartment entirely. You will be left without housing. Then I'll sell the apartment. Christine grabbed her bag. I'll sell it, get the money, Anne. And what? I looked at her. Start over at 38? With no degree, no job, no connections? That's none of your business. It is my business, I stepped forward. Because I manage Paula's inheritance. If you sell the apartment, I will do everything to make sure my granddaughter does not end up on the street. I will file to terminate your parental rights. Christine froze. You wouldn't dare. I'll try, I didn't look away. You cheated on your husband. Ignored your daughter. Threw your mother-in-law out on the street. Do you really think the court will side with you? Silence. Christine stood there, breathing heavily, clutching her purse. I could see the battle between pride and fear in her eyes. I hate you, she finally spat out. I hate all of you. She ran out of the office, slamming the door so hard the glass panes trembled. I sank into a chair, my legs weak beneath me. Mrs. Sullivan, said the notary, handing me a glass of water. Are you all right? No, I took a sip. Just tired. Very tired. He nodded with understanding. Please sign here. This confirms the receipt of the will. Starting next week, you may assume your inheritance rights. I signed the documents with a trembling hand. Only one thought kept circling in my head: what now? When I returned home around 12:30, the apartment was silent. Christine was gone, probably off licking her wounds or, more likely, plotting revenge. Paula was sitting in her room, headphones in her ears, but I could tell there was no music playing. She was just hiding from reality. Sweetheart, I sat on the edge of the bed, we need to talk. She took off her headphones, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Grandma, I heard everything. When you were talking to Mom last night. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but... What exactly did you hear? That Dad knew, Paula sobbed. He knew about Mom and that Simon. And he wrote the will because he wanted to protect us. I wrapped my arms around her and pulled her close. Yes, sweetheart. Your father found out about the affair 2 months before he died. And instead of making a scandal, he decided to take care of you and me. So he died because of her? Paula's voice shook. Because of Mom? I didn't know what to say. The doctors had called it a heart attack, stress, exhaustion, emotional strain. But we both knew, if not for the affair, David might still be alive. Your mother made a mistake, I stroked her hair. A terrible mistake. But she didn't want your father to die. But he did. Paula pulled away, tears streaming down her cheeks. He died because she betrayed him. And now she's throwing you out, as if you haven't suffered enough. Polly. No, she jumped to her feet. I don't want to live with her. I don't want to see her. She killed Dad. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. Paula's voice cracked. She killed him with her betrayal. And now she's pretending to be the victim. The door flew open. Christine stood in the doorway, her face puffy, eyes red, makeup smeared. I didn't kill your father, her voice was hoarse. I never wanted him to die. But you wanted to be with another man. Paula turned toward her mother. You had fun with him while Dad was working. Christine turned pale. How do you? I knew. Paula cried. I saw you 3 months ago. At a cafe on Pine Street. You were kissing. I was walking with my friends after school and saw you. Oh my God. Paula had known. All this time, she'd stayed silent. Why didn't you say anything? I asked, taking her hand. Because I thought, her voice trembled. I thought that if I told Dad, he'd divorce Mom, and our family would fall apart. I wanted to keep it together, Grandma. But now Dad's gone, and the family's broken anyway. Christine stood by the door, and for the first time, I saw not anger or arrogance on her face, but shock. Real, raw shock. You knew, she whispered. Yes. Paula stepped toward her mother. I knew. And I hated myself for staying quiet. I hated you for what you were doing. But I loved Dad and didn't want to destroy his life. Paula, You can't explain anything, the girl stepped back. Nothing. Because there are no excuses. You cheated on your husband. You destroyed our family. And now you're throwing Grandma out of her home. I'm not throwing anyone out. Christine tried to come closer, but Paula recoiled. I need space. I need to figure things out. You need money, I said coldly. That's what you need. You thought you'd get the apartment and everything else. But David was smarter. Christine turned toward me, her eyes blazing. You turned her against me. You poisoned my daughter. I did nothing, I said, stepping between them. You destroyed your relationship with your daughter yourself, with your own choices. I'm her mother. Then act like one. I raised my voice. Stop thinking only about yourself. Look at your daughter. She's lost her father. She's 16, and she has no dad anymore. And I've lost my husband. Christine shouted back. The husband you betrayed. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. Christine stood there, breathing hard, her hands trembling. Paula pressed against me, sobbing. I'm leaving, I finally said. Tomorrow morning I'll pack my things and move to Bellevue. To the house David left me. I'm going with Grandma, Paula said firmly. Christine looked at her daughter. You're leaving your mother? You left the family first, Paula answered. When you went to Simon. It was cruel, but it was true. Christine turned and walked out of the room without another word. The bedroom door slammed shut. I held Paula, stroking her back as she cried. And I thought, what happens now? How do we go on living in this shattered world where my son is dead and his family has fallen apart? Grandma, Paula whispered through tears. What if Mom's right? Maybe Dad really didn't love her? I sighed. Love isn't just words and flowers, sweetheart. Love is responsibility. Care. David worked to give you both a good life. That's love too. But sometimes people speak different languages of love and fail to understand each other. So Mom's not guilty? She is, I shook my head. Because instead of talking, she chose betrayal. And that's always the wrong choice. Paula nodded and buried her face in my shoulder. I stared out the window at the evening lights of Seattle and thought, could we ever forgive? Or would this wound bleed for the rest of our lives? The next morning, I woke up at 5 to the sound of a slamming door. Christine was gone. Where to, no idea. I walked through the apartment. Her bedroom was empty, the bed untouched. She hadn't slept at home at all. Paula came out of her room, her eyes swollen. Grandma, Mom didn't stay home? No, sweetheart. Do you think she went to him? To Simon? I shrugged. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. We had our own plans, to pack our things and move to Bellevue, to start a new life. We were boxing up our belongings when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and standing there was a woman around 45, elegant, in a fine coat. A stranger. Mrs. Linda Sullivan, she extended her hand. My name is Margaret Harris. I'm Simon's wife. The world tilted. Simon's wife. Here. Come in, I stepped aside, my heart pounding. Margaret entered, looking around calmly as she removed her gloves. Her movements were precise, deliberate, a woman used to being in control. Forgive the intrusion, she said, sitting on the couch. But I needed to talk to you. About your daughter-in-law. Christine? Yes. Margaret pulled a folder from her bag. You see, I knew about my husband's affair. It wasn't the first time, you understand? Simon, he's like that. Every few years there's a new fascination. Usually it means nothing. But this time was different. I sat across from her, speechless. Paula stood frozen in her doorway. This time, he was involved with his business partner's wife. Margaret opened the folder. With the wife of the man he was working with on a major project. It was dangerous, for business, for reputation, for everything. So I hired a private investigator. She spread the photographs on the table. Christine and Simon in a cafe. In a car. Near a hotel. Kissing, laughing, holding each other. The dates on the photos covered the past 4 months. Your son hired a detective too, Margaret said quietly. We met by chance at the same investigator's office. David was devastated. But he was a decent man. He told me, Mrs. Harris, I don't want to destroy your family. You have children. Let's just walk away quietly, without a scandal. Tears filled my throat. That was so like David, thinking of others even in his own pain. But a week after our meeting, your son died, Margaret's voice trembled. And I feel guilty. I should have stopped Simon sooner. I should have. You're not to blame, I shook my head. The guilt belongs to those who betrayed. Maybe, Margaret closed the folder. But I didn't come here just out of guilt. I came to warn you. Christine won't stop. She'll try to contest the will, to get the money, to win Simon back. She's dangerous. Dangerous? I frowned. She's just a frightened woman who's lost everything. No, Margaret shook her head. She's a woman used to getting what she wants, no matter the cost. Mrs. Sullivan, please be careful. Especially with your granddaughter. Christine might try to use Paula to get to the money. I looked at Paula, she stood pale, clutching her hands to her chest. What do you mean? She may try to turn the girl against you. Or file for custody if you take Paula with you. Or find some way to access the inheritance through her daughter. I know women like that. I used to be one, when I was young and foolish. Margaret stood, putting on her gloves. Simon will no longer be seeing your daughter-in-law. I've taken care of that. But Christine isn't the kind to give up. She'll come to you, maybe with apologies, maybe with tears. Don't believe her. Until she truly understands her guilt, she'll be dangerous. She headed toward the door, then turned back. And one more thing. Your son left a letter. For you. He gave it to the private investigator before he died, asking him to deliver it if anything happened. Here. Margaret handed me a sealed envelope. I took it with trembling hands. My condolences, she said softly, then left, leaving behind a faint scent of perfume. I stood there with the envelope in my hands, afraid to open it. Paula came closer and put her arms around my shoulders. Grandma, what is it? I don't know, sweetheart. I'm afraid to find out. But I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in David's shaky, uneven handwriting, so unlike his usual steady script. Mom, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry. Sorry for everything. I know you'll say there's nothing to apologize for, but I must. I couldn't keep my family together. I couldn't be a good husband. I worked too much, spent too little time at home. Christine was right, I ignored her. But the betrayal killed me, Mom. Not physically, inside. I can't look her in the eye anymore and pretend everything's fine. My heart hurts. Really hurts, Mom. Every day. I wrote this will to protect you and Paula. Christine will get the apartment, let her have it. But the business, the money, everything else belongs to my daughter. You'll manage, Mom. You always have. Take care of Paula. She's all I truly have. Everything else was an illusion. I love you. David. P.S. If Christine tries to contest the will, don't give up. Mr. Warner has additional documents. They prove I was of sound mind. The letters blurred before my eyes. I pressed my hand over my mouth to stop the cry rising in my throat. David knew. He knew he was dying. That his heart wouldn't hold. And he'd written this letter as a farewell. Grandma, Paula took the letter from me, read it, and tears streamed down her face. Dad, he knew he was going to die. I don't know, sweetheart, I pulled her close. But he was prepared. He protected us until the very end. We sat there, holding each other, crying. Outside, snow began to fall, the first snow of the season, covering Seattle in a white blanket. Then the phone rang sharply, breaking the silence. An unknown number. "Hello?" "Mrs. Sullivan," a man's voice said, stern and formal. "This is Mr. Connor Bennett, attorney at law. I've been hired by Christine Sullivan to contest the will of her late husband. I request your presence tomorrow at 2 p.m. in my office for a preliminary discussion." My heart dropped. She's contesting the will? But she'll lose the apartment. My client is willing to take that risk, the lawyer said coldly. "Good day." He hung up. I stood there with the phone in my hand, feeling the world crumble all over again. Christine had declared war. I didn't sleep that night. I tossed and turned, staring at the ceiling, running through every possible outcome in my mind. Christine was contesting the will. That meant court. That meant conflict. That meant Paula would be caught in the middle, between her mother and her grandmother. In the morning, I called Mr. Stephen Warner, the notary. "Christine's hired a lawyer," I said. "She's going to contest the will." As expected, he sighed. "Don't worry, Mrs. Sullivan. We have everything: David's psychiatric evaluation confirming he was of sound mind, witness statements, and a video recording of the will signing. She won't succeed. But she'll lose the apartment. That's her choice," he said firmly. David anticipated this scenario. If she goes to court, she forfeits everything. I hung up and looked at Paula. She was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly out the window, a cup of tea in her hands. "Sweetheart, we need to talk." "About Mom?" She didn't turn her head. "Yes. She's contesting the will. That means there will be a trial. You might be called as a witness." Paula slowly set down her cup. "What should I say?" "The truth," I said, sitting beside her. "Only the truth, what you saw, what you felt." "So I'll have to tell the judge that my mom cheated on my dad?" Paula's voice trembled. "That I saw them in the cafe?" "Maybe." Paula covered her face with her hands. "I can't, Grandma. I can't do that to my mom." "Paula, listen," I took her hands in mine. "Your mother made her choice. She chose to contest the will, knowing the consequences. You're not guilty of anything. You just have to tell the truth." "But she's my mom," she sobbed. "I can't betray her." "You're not betraying her," I pulled her close. "You're protecting yourself, and your father's memory." The doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. I opened the door. Christine stood there. Her face was pale and hollow, her eyes sunken, her clothes wrinkled. She clearly hadn't slept at home. "I need to talk to Paula," she tried to step inside, but I blocked the doorway. "Christine, you hired a lawyer. You're contesting David's will. Because it's unfair," she raised her voice. "He left me only the apartment. And gave the business and the money to you. Not to me, to Paula. His daughter. My daughter." Christine jabbed her finger at her chest. "Mine. And I have the right to control her inheritance." "No," I folded my arms. "You don't. David appointed me as the trustee. Until Paula turns 18, I make all financial decisions. Then I'll take my daughter." Christine tried to push past me. "Paula. Paula, come out. We're leaving." "She's not going anywhere," I said firmly, standing my ground. "You have no right." Christine grabbed my shoulder. "She's my daughter." "Mom, stop." Paula came out of the kitchen, her face pale but resolute. "I'm not going anywhere." Christine froze. "What?" I'm staying with Grandma, Paula said, stepping beside me. I'm better off here. Paula, I'm your mother. Christine's voice broke. You can't abandon me. You left our family first, Paula said quietly. When you cheated on Dad. That's different. Christine stammered. You don't understand. I do, Paula said, stepping forward. You were unhappy. You wanted attention. But instead of talking to Dad, you turned to another man. And now he's gone, and you're trying to take the money he left for me. I'm not trying to take it. Christine cried. I want justice. Justice? I snapped. Justice would be if you'd stayed faithful to your husband. If you hadn't betrayed him. David left you the apartment. That's more than you deserve. Christine looked at me, then at her daughter. Tears streaked her face, mixing with the smeared remains of yesterday's makeup. So you're both against me, she whispered. You both think I'm a monster? Mom, Paula said softly, stepping closer, I don't think you're a monster. But you made a mistake, a big one. And now you're trying to fix it the wrong way. What's the right way? Christine wiped her tears. To be left with nothing? To live alone in that apartment while everyone judges me? To take responsibility, I said firmly. To admit you were wrong. To ask for forgiveness. And to drop the lawsuit. Christine laughed, a sharp, hysterical laugh. Ask for forgiveness? From my dead husband? From you? From my daughter who looks at me like I'm a traitor? From all of us, I said, meeting her eyes. If you want to start over. Christine shook her head. No. I can't. I can't do this alone. I need money. I need support. Then you'll lose everything, I sighed. The apartment, your daughter, the last bit of respect anyone has left for you. Maybe, Christine said, turning toward the door. But at least I'll fight. I won't just give up like you want me to. She left, slamming the door behind her. Paula pressed against me. Grandma, what's going to happen now? I don't know, sweetheart, I held her close. But we'll get through this. Together. Inside, though, my heart tightened with fear. Because I knew, Christine wouldn't stop. She'd go to the very end. And that end could be terrifying. My phone buzzed with a new message from an unknown number. Mrs. Sullivan, this is Margaret Harris. I need to meet with you urgently. I've learned something about Christine, something that could change everything. Please come to the cafe, Cheese Corner, on Pike Street at 4 p.m. It's important. What now? What else could possibly change in this nightmare? But I knew I would go. Because I had to protect Paula. At any cost. I arrived at Cheese Corner Cafe at 5 minutes to 4. Mrs. Margaret Harris was already sitting at a table by the window, a cup of coffee in front of her and a closed folder beside it. When she saw me, she nodded and gestured to the seat across from her. Thank you for coming, she said, sliding the menu toward me. Order something. This will be a long conversation. I ordered tea. My hands trembled as I took off my coat. Mrs. Harris, what did you find out? She opened the folder and took out several documents. After our last meeting, I kept digging. I hired the same investigator your son used. And do you know what he found? Christine wasn't just cheating on David, she'd been planning a divorce. For over 6 months. What? I grabbed the documents. Then why didn't she file for it? Because she was waiting, Margaret said, pointing to one of the pages. Look, this is a transcript of her messages with a divorce attorney. She was getting legal advice on property division. The lawyer told her to wait until your son's company increased in value. Then she'd get a bigger settlement. My breath caught. So it wasn't just betrayal, it was calculation. But that's not all. Margaret turned another page. Christine took out loans. 3 loans over the past year, totaling $52,000. Your son had no idea. She used the apartment as collateral. As collateral? I went cold. But the apartment was in David's name. It was, Margaret nodded. But 8 months ago, Christine convinced him to re-register the property in both their names. Said it was for security reasons, in case something happened with the business. David agreed. And right after that, she took the loans. I stared at the papers, unable to believe what I was seeing. $52,000. What did she spend it on? I'm not entirely sure, Margaret said. But the investigator discovered she made frequent trips to Vancouver. Rented an apartment there. Maybe she planned to move there with Simon after the divorce. An apartment in Vancouver. Plans for a future without David. And he'd been working, unaware that his wife had already erased him from her life. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because Christine is drowning in debt. Margaret closed the folder. Those loans are coming due. And her only asset is the apartment, which she'll lose if she goes through with contesting the will. You see what I'm getting at? She's desperate. She's dangerous, Margaret corrected. Mrs. Sullivan, I warned you for a reason. Christine might try to use Paula, convince her to sign something, or worse, take her away to pressure you. Take her? I jumped to my feet. You're serious? Completely, Margaret said, meeting my eyes. She has no money, no lover, no support. Desperate people can do terrible things. Be careful. I grabbed my phone and dialed Paula's number. 1 ring. 2. 3. No answer. Paula. I pressed redial. Please, answer. 5 rings. 6. Then the call dropped. Panic hit like a wave. I ran out of the cafe, hailed a cab. Greenwood Avenue, number 23. Quickly. The whole way, I kept calling her. Her phone was on, but she didn't answer. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might give out, just like David's. The apartment greeted me with silence. The door was wide open. Paula. I rushed inside. Paula, where are you? Silence. I ran through every room. Empty. Her things were still there, her phone lay on the bed, but she was gone. On the kitchen table lay a note. Christine's handwriting. Mrs. Sullivan, I've taken my daughter. We need to talk. Alone. No lawyers, no courts. If you want to see Paula again, come to the house in Bellevue. The one David left you. Alone. If I see the police, you'll never see your granddaughter again. My hands trembled so hard the note fell to the floor. Bellevue. She'd taken Paula to the house outside the city. I grabbed my phone to call the police, but stopped. If I see the police, you'll never see your granddaughter again. What if she meant it? What if Christine truly was capable of something terrible? I ran outside and flagged down a taxi. To Bellevue. Fast. The driver glanced at me nervously. Ma'am, are you all right? Maybe you should see a doctor first. Just drive. I nearly shouted. Now. The city faded behind us. Seattle disappeared into the distance, replaced by open fields, forests, and winding roads. 32 miles to Bellevue, miles that felt like an eternity. What was she planning? Why take Paula? What did she want? The house in Bellevue greeted me with darkness. Not a single light in the windows. I got out of the car, paid the driver, and walked up to the porch. The door was slightly open. "Christine," I called, stepping inside. "Christine, I'm here." "Where's Paula?" Silence. Then, footsteps upstairs. "Come up," Christine's voice called out, soft, tired, almost detached. I climbed the stairs. In the bedroom on the second floor, a single lamp was lit. Paula sat on the bed, her arms wrapped around her knees, her face wet with tears. Christine stood by the window, her back to us. "Something's wrong with Mom," Paula whispered. "Grandma, she's acting strange." I hugged my granddaughter, checking quickly, she was unharmed. Then I turned to Christine. "Why did you do this? Why did you take your own daughter?" Christine slowly turned around. Her face was swollen, her eyes red, and a nearly empty wine bottle dangled from her hand. "I didn't kidnap her," she said with a bitter smile. "I just took what's mine. My daughter." "You terrified her." "And who terrified me?" Christine took a gulp from the bottle. "When I found out I'd been left with nothing. When Simon called me a mistake. When my own daughter refused to live with me." "Christine, you're drunk," I said, taking a careful step toward her. "Let's go downstairs and talk calmly." "Don't come near me," she shouted, stepping back toward the window. "I just want you to listen. All of you." Without interrupting. Paula pressed against me. I held her close, never taking my eyes off Christine. "All right," I said quietly. "We're listening. Talk." And she began to speak, and what I heard turned everything I'd ever thought about this woman upside down. "You all think I'm a monster," Christine said, setting the bottle on the windowsill. "That I married David for money. That I cheated because I'm evil. But you don't know the truth. No one does." She slid down to the floor, leaning against the wall. "I loved David. When we met, I was 22. He was brilliant, kind, talented. I fell for him completely. We got married, had Paula. The first 5 years were happy. And then, he started to change." I wanted to interrupt, but I'd promised to listen. The business grew, projects, clients, endless meetings. David was gone 14 hours a day. I knew he was building a future for us, but I was alone. Alone with a little girl, in a house where there was no one to talk to. I tried to tell him. I said, "I'm lonely. I need you." Do you know what he told me? Christine looked up, tears in her eyes. "Be patient, Christine. Just a couple more years and we'll be rich. Then we'll have everything." But I didn't need money. I needed my husband. Someone next to me. And he wasn't there. Paula sobbed quietly. I squeezed her hand. I started seeing a therapist. Took antidepressants. Tried hobbies, friends, anything to fill the emptiness. Nothing worked. And then Simon appeared. David's business partner. He came over sometimes, we talked. He listened to me. For the first time in years, someone actually listened. She wiped her eyes. I didn't plan to cheat. I swear I didn't. But one day David left for a 3-day business trip. I was alone. Simon called to ask how I was. I started crying on the phone. He came over. We opened a bottle of wine, talked until morning, and then it happened. Christine covered her face with her hands. I hated myself afterward. Every single day. But I couldn't stop. Because with Simon, I felt alive again. Seen. Not furniture, human. That doesn't excuse betrayal, I said quietly. I know. She nodded. I know. But I didn't know how to stop. And then David found out. Do you know what was the worst part? He didn't yell. He didn't hit me. He didn't throw me out. He just looked at me, with such disappointment, and said, "I see." That was all. We never spoke of it again. Paula cried harder. I rubbed her back, speechless. I wanted to leave, Christine went on. To file for divorce. But David said, "Wait. For Paula's sake. Let's at least pretend to be a family." I agreed. We lived like strangers under one roof. And a month later, he was gone. She lifted her head. And I was alone. With guilt. With debts David never knew about. Yes, I took out loans. Because I wanted to run away. To rent an apartment in Vancouver and start over. Not with Simon, alone. Somewhere no one knew me. Silence filled the room. Christine looked at us, waiting for what? Condemnation? Forgiveness? "Mom," Paula said softly, standing up and walking to her. "Why didn't you tell us earlier?" "Because I was ashamed," Christine whispered. "Because I betrayed your father. Because I was afraid you'd hate me." "I don't hate you," Paula said, sitting beside her. "It hurts, a lot, but I don't hate you." Christine pulled her daughter into her arms, and they both broke down in tears. I stood watching them, feeling something inside me break, and slowly start to heal again. This woman wasn't a monster. She was a broken person who'd made a terrible mistake, and was now paying the price. I sat down beside them. "Christine, are you contesting the will because of the debts?" She nodded, her head resting on her daughter's shoulder. 52,000. I don't know how to pay it back. If I sell the apartment, I'll have nowhere to live. If I don't, the bank will take it in 3 months. I sighed. David had left me $100,000. I could help. "Listen carefully," I said, taking Christine's hand. "I'll help you with the debts. I'll pay half. But there are conditions." She looked up. "What conditions?" "You withdraw the lawsuit. You leave the will intact. You stay in the apartment David left you. Paula will live with me until she turns 18, but you can see her whenever you want. And most importantly, you start therapy. Seriously. For as long as it takes. You need to face yourself." Christine stared at me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right. I agree. And one more thing," I squeezed her hand a little tighter. "You ask Paula for forgiveness. Not today, when you're ready. When you truly understand what you did wrong." "I already do," Christine whispered. "No," I shook my head. "As long as you keep justifying yourself with loneliness and lack of attention, you don't understand yet. When you really do, we'll talk again." We sat there, the three of us, on the floor of the old house my husband had built. Outside, snow was falling, covering the world in white. And for the first time in 2 weeks since David's death, I felt something close to hope. The road to forgiveness would be long. The wound wouldn't heal overnight. But we would start, step by step, day by day. Together. 3 months later, Christine found a job as a secretary at a small firm. She went to therapy twice a week. Paula saw her on weekends. They talked, sometimes in silence, sometimes through tears. But it was progress. I restored Christine's dignity by paying off her debts. She cried when I handed her the money, saying she didn't deserve it. I told her, "This isn't for you. It's for Paula. So she won't grow up without a mother." A year passed. Paula turned 17. The business under my management was thriving. Christine came to her daughter's birthday with a cake, a gift, and a genuine smile. We drank tea on the terrace of the house in Bellevue. And when Paula hugged her mother, I saw tears in Christine's eyes, real ones. Not from self-pity, but from gratitude. That evening, after Paula went to bed, Christine came up to me. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'm ready." "For what?" "To ask for forgiveness." "For real." She knelt before me. I tried to lift her up, but she gently moved my hand aside. "Forgive me, for betraying your son. For hurting you and Paula. For being selfish. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking for a chance to become better." I looked at this woman, exhausted, honest, broken yet whole again, and realized something. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's strength. "I forgive you, Christine," I said, helping her stand. "David would forgive you too. He loved you. And he wanted Paula to grow up with her mother." We hugged, for the first time in a year and a half. If this story touched your heart and you want to help us keep sharing stories like this one, click the super thanks button. It's the little heart with the $sign below the video. Every time you do, you help us create stories that inspire and remind people that even after the deepest betrayal, forgiveness is always possible. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. Tell us in the comments which moment moved you the most. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you won't miss new stories. Leave a like if you believe in the power of forgiveness and second chances. And before you go, check out the story on the screen. We're sure it will touch your heart just as deeply.